Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2026 Business Impact Webinar for Office Furniture Manufacturers. I'm Brian Wilson. I'm an Executive Director for the Home and Office vertical here at 3D Cloud. I've been here at 3D Cloud for coming up on 8 years, partnering with our largest office manufacturing partners to deliver their 3D visualization products. Joined with me is Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa Conforto from Provoke Insights. We're a market research and brand strategy firm based right outside of Manhattan. I've been with the company for 5+ years, and I'm the director of research and strategy.
I'm excited for the session today. We have a lot to cover. I thought I'd set the scene with a little bit of premise. So we have very successful 3D visualization solutions used by major office furniture manufacturers, but sometimes our stakeholders can struggle to explain the ROI on their investment. That's why we worked with Provoke Insights to develop a framework to better illustrate the business impact of the 3D Cloud product suite. Something like an e-commerce landscape is really simple to place an ROI, whereas the office space can be a bit tricky to measure the total business impact. With figuring out the ROI, I think what we're learning is that visualization used to be a competitive advantage for some, and now it's become a requirement to compete. Before I turn it over to Melissa to share a bit of the background of the study, I wanted to thank our partners for their willingness to anonymously share the information that made this study possible. Melissa?
Yeah, so from our side, what we really wanted to do was go beyond just surface level ROI, exactly what you said, Brian, because in this category, especially, it's not always straightforward like e-commerce, like you said. So instead of trying to force a single number, we spoke directly with manufacturers, both decision makers and users, to understand what's actually changing in their workflows. And across every company we interviewed, the impact consistently showed up in 4 areas: productivity, operational simplicity, cost efficiency, and sales enablement. One thing we heard over and over, exactly to your point, Brian, is that visualization used to be competitive, and now it's just a requirement to compete. The folks who we spoke to really described it as infrastructure at this point. And the companies that are really leading are the ones bringing visualization earlier into the buying process and not waiting till the final stages. Honestly, everything we're going to be talking about really ladders back to productivity, which is really the core theme we saw across the research.
Thanks, Melissa. Like Melissa was saying, what we see with our current clients is the productivity is the key success measurement. So in my experience, when office manufacturers come to us, it's usually because managing their 3D configurator program has become overly complex or time consuming or overwhelming. There's so many people involved that have to have breadth of knowledge. There's too much room for error. Naturally, they still want things like photorealistic quality, but what they really need are true workflow revisions that completely overhaul their approach to creating and managing product configurators. This extends to being able to manage timelines better with product launches, merchandising priorities, as well as a single platform for self-service visualization that integrates with other legacy enterprise systems and can make improvements in their workflow while still preserving their existing investments. The other part of this, in terms of being a productive office manufacturing organization, is enabling your dealers and your other partners to take advantage of the investment. Generally speaking, this has been my experience, but I think Melissa is going to share a little bit more from the research.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we were hearing. What's interesting about what you were just speaking about, Brian, and what you shared is this idea of work coming in partially done. We heard that a lot. And now that requests are coming in more complete, it really changes how teams are spending their time. We actually heard things like it easily saves days of back and forth, which really speaks to that shift. A big driver of that is self-service. Customers, dealers, and internal teams are able to explore options independently instead of relying on specialists for every request. So instead of everything funneling through a small team, work gets distributed much earlier in the process. And what that translates to is fewer handoffs between teams, faster design and sales cycles, and overall higher throughput. Another quote that comes to mind is someone said, "We no longer have to restart the process every time something changes," which shows how much inefficiency is actually being removed. And this isn't just incremental, it's actually a shift in how workflows are structured now. One of those benefits is really about headcount. And the result is exactly what you described, Brian. Companies are increasing output significantly, often without adding that headcount. And that's where that 50% plus increase in output is coming from without growing the team.
Jumping right into the next element, operational simplicity. So I thought I'd kick this one off with a little bit of a story that ties back to what we're talking about here, which is I think one of the main benefits of a quality visualization platform is the ability to improve the systems, not hire additional people to serve those audiences, right? So one of the best examples of this is a 2.5 fractional person team at one of the largest office manufacturers, and they scaled from a single configurator to over 100 in under 2 years, right? Didn't have to increase the size of their team while simultaneously launching a retail program accounting for over 1 million SKUs, right? This 2.5 person mighty team services 7 countries and 2 different audiences, both B2B and B2C, right? And naturally, there's, of course, this 2.5 person dedicated team, but there's other contributors outside of this team that come in and help and answer questions and things. So I want to make sure that they get credit as well. And I think what's really interesting with this particular team is that this team is not developers or engineers or highly technical people. It's rock star project manager. It's a data entry and content management team that can take advantage of a code-free configurator solution and scale it across countries, audiences, product types, right? And I'm using this example of a 2.5 person team, and fortunately, they're a very impressive team led by, like I said, an absolute rock star product manager. But I think this is a really good example of simple operations, right? Take a small team, build something code free, scale it literally across the world, and not have to add a bunch of people to do it. You can reuse, recycle some themes that are probably going to come up later. So, Melissa, I thought I'd turn it over to you if you wanted to share a little bit more about what the research has to say about operational simplicity and scalability.
Yeah, that example is a perfect illustration of what we heard. It's not just about doing more, it's about simplifying the entire system so it's easier to scale. One thing that really stood out in the research is that these teams aren't highly technical. So the platform is really enabling non-developers to scale those configurators across products. And across all the companies we spoke to and we interviewed, there was a clear move toward consolidating tools and workflows. Instead of managing multiple systems or vendors, everything is now being centralized into a single platform, which really reduced those internal complexities and making everything more consistent. We even saw examples similar to the story you said, Brian, of really small teams supporting these larger ecosystems. I think we heard something like a 5 person team supporting over 100 dealers and hundreds of internal users. In another case, companies were able to deploy dozens of configurators over a relatively short period, scaling based on product complexity and not team size. So again, it's this idea that usage and scale don't require linear increases in staff. One of the quotes that really stuck out to me was, "We're able to do more projects with the same level of resources." So this really captures what's happening operationally.
Thanks for sharing that, Melissa. I think like one of the byproducts of operational simplicity really is cost efficiency, right? And I really want to turn into that area now. So I think what we see the main theme of cost efficiency being is taking legacy processes and using technology to streamline them, or allowing for things to serve multiple purposes, right? So what we're seeing is, large office manufacturers using rendering or 3D assets to offset production of existing assets for dealers, A&D pros, internal legacy systems. And so we've got clients who, instead of having to set up some big, massive shoot of product in all 700,000 different options to be able to showcase them to their dealer network or their A&D pros or their internal teams, they can use photorealistic 3D renders directly from the 3D cloud to serve that purpose, saving time, saving money, and not having to go do some big glamorous studio setup. With that, one of the other main themes of cost efficiency is reuse of assets, right? And so when you invest in a fully operational 3D pipeline with a tool like 3D Cloud, you're naturally going to build up your 3D asset library, and those assets are portable and designed to be used in other places. And so you can make them available to your dealers. You can download them, use them for your internal tools, legacy spec tools. You can give them out to your A&D pros, and you can make that all self-service. So the traditional model of, fill out a form and ask me for access to those assets, you can get away from that. You can have them do it themselves. They can do it in bulk. You can do it on your terms. You can do it in line with your books. There's no back and forth. It becomes a lot easier. And so you can take what you already have and repurpose it without having to pay for it again, and also not need to staff up to support those requests so that you can support those dealers, right? And so I think those two things, operational simplicity and cost efficiency, really just go hand in hand. And I'd be really curious to hear what sort of cost efficiency items you heard in your interviews with our partners.
Right. So what we heard is when workflows improve and output scales, costs naturally start to come down. The biggest impact we saw was around rendering. Companies were able to reduce or completely eliminate external rendering services, which was a major cost driver. In some cases, per image cost dropped from hundreds of dollars to just minimal internal retouching efforts. Another big theme we heard, and you touched on this, Brian, is asset reuse. Teams are creating models once and using them across multiple tools and workflows instead of recreating them over and over. So instead of a variable cost model where every output costs something, it becomes a much more scalable and predictable investment. And then there's the idea of cost avoidance, which we heard, where companies are able to support higher demand without hiring additional specialists or rebuilding those systems.
Thanks, Melissa. I think even with being able to save cost and open up these tools to dealers, to your internal users, I think one of the next main areas to focus on is enabling them or empowering them, getting them excited about something. And I love to talk about this. I bring it up all the time. Some of the people that are watching this have probably heard me say this before, but we have an example where a very large office manufacturing partner of ours sent out a survey to all of their dealer network. And the survey basically said, tell us what we can be doing better for you. How should we invest? How can we empower you? And the number one thing that came back in that survey was that they wanted 3D configurators for more of the product line, right? And I think that's so powerful. You're saying, give me your list of whatever you want to see more of, and they're coming back and saying, we want more of your product line to be self-service. So there is a hunger out there for these tools, right? I don't want to say demanding it, but they kind of are in a sense. And I think if you can make it super easy and simple for your dealers to self-serve, you can save money, save time, cut down on the back and forth. And they're also going to feel empowered to do these things themselves, and therefore, submit more design projects themselves that come in partially pre-spec'd, right? You don't have to do all of the legwork on, which finish gets applied or which material is used for the main body. They can do that themselves. And I think partnering with an all-in-one platform that can service all of these areas to allow you to download and empower these dealers is becoming table stakes in a sense. Like you kind of have to have these tools. I think these dealers are probably expecting it now to be able to do it. So I'd love to hear, Melissa, what we learned during the study about enabling and empowering sales teams.
Yeah, that really lines up with what we heard. There's clearly a strong demand from dealers to have more access to these tools. They want more autonomy. They want to be able to spec and visualize on their own without relying on internal teams. The biggest shift we saw is that visualization is happening much earlier in the buying process. Customers are exploring options and making decisions before they even engage deeply with sales. We're also seeing real usage at scale, things like tens of thousands of image downloads and bill of material requests each month. And that early access is driving more activity. One company actually saw a 65% increase in new design projects after making it more accessible. It's not just supporting sales either, it's actually generating more engagement upstream. It's had a real impact on pipeline quality. We saw examples of significant value being generated during the evaluation phase, even before formal sales conversations. So if you zoom out, all of these benefits really reinforce each other. Productivity enables scale, operational simplicity makes that scale manageable, cost efficiency supports it financially, and early visualization improves sales outcomes. Across every company we spoke to, there was alignment on one thing, that this is no longer optional. And to me, that is one of the strongest takeaways from the study.
Thank you, Melissa, and thanks to each of you for joining us today. It's a really exciting and interesting time in the office furniture industry as emerging configuration technologies become more and more integrated into the dealer and design processes. It's changing all the time, so please stay in touch. And if you have any questions, you can email me at brianw@3dcloud.com. Thank you.